Recording in
That's Textbook Sports Squad on YouTube. I appreciate those of y'all tuning in. Y'all mean a lot to me. Today, really excited for this film breakdown on Arizona wide receiver Tet McMillan, Tetairoa McMillan, T-Mac. Those are the different names he goes by and or prefers. Here he is right here. If you can see the mouse, there he is within the circle that this mouse is creating right here. That's him. And let's just see what his film portrays, what I think he needs to work on and stuff like that, because I do feel like even though he is a very hyped up and touted prospect for reasons, obviously the reasons being very good. I mean, right, he's a 6'5" wide receiver. He has tremendous hands. He has good sideline footwork, toe or toe drag swag. He also can pinpoint the ball, right? Everything you look for in ideal and big wide receiver. So, nonetheless, without the introduction done, let's watch this film breakdown. So let's see. It's going to be at a slow speed. So he's running an out route. And about right there, you can see he gives that jab at the 33-yard line, indicating that this is his cut right here. So he's starting the cut at the 33. And I want to pinpoint this because on the film, I've seen him round cuts and his cuts just not be as sharp. Okay, listen, he's 6'5". Obviously they're not going to have the movement of a receiver that is 6'1", 6'2", 5'10", 5'11", right? It's going to take them some time. But in the NFL, you have to run routes. The routes has to be crisp. So let's play this out fully now. Starting at the 33, rounded, he eventually finishes at about the 37. So that's 4 yards. He allowed the defensive back to close space without the DB not even having to do anything. But because he is 6'5", he can box out. He has good hands, good toe drag swag, sideline foot awareness, and it gets the job done. On the scouting report, the thing we should all know, I don't even think we have to watch the film. You just have to watch the broadcast view. He has tremendous size, and with a tremendous size, he has tremendous hands. So here he is to the bottom of the screen working up against Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter probably going to be the first, or not the first, because I think we all feel like Cam Ward is going to be, but nonetheless, Travis Hunter is a very good player, going to be selected very highly. So here's McMillan, goal line fade, going to work a hesitation kind of crossover release, as you saw with the footwork there on the 1-2. But the thing that's so good for him right here and good about him is that even though he may not be like the best route runner, he definitely has the size and hands to make up for it here. For sure, and I think pretty easily the best route that he runs is a slant. So here he is to the top of the screen running a slant. That's an in-breaking route. Inside leverage from the defensive back. Typically, the thought process for here for the receiver is let's give him a jab or a move to their right to really get them off platform and make them move off their leverage from inside to outside. Here, I mean, he really kind of doesn't on the release give any kind of move. I mean, but it's quick. I mean, it's sudden. He gets open, and as I mentioned, it's definitely the best route he runs. And then something he does pretty well for his size is yards after catch. So this is where we start getting into the bad of the film, and I've noticed a common thing from defensive coordinator and defenses that play up against McMillan is they will have the corner he's matched up with here, like for instance here to the bottom inside leverage, pretty heavy inside leverage right here. And then they'll have either too high or a safety over the top. This will be this will be when the play is played out, the safety that goes over to the top, shading to the middle of the field. And so here, I mean, where it gets into the bad is I just feel like the urgency within his route. He's running a 9 route, which is a go, that's straight. And it just feels like the urgency there, and then the speed or agility burst to stack the defensive back necessarily isn't there. But again, since he's such a large target, he's got that catch radius. On this clip, we're still into the area of the good, the pluses. So here he is again to the bottom. Again, very heavy inside leverage. And actually they're almost going to kind of like bracket him or first and second level the coverage, meaning that the cornerback he's matched up with is going to be deep, and then they're going to have some kind of either defensive back or linebacker type really cover into the flat. Um, So as it played out, what I like here though is it's kind of a variation of like cover two. Like in cover two, you have the defensive back that's going to play the flat. All right. Some of the defensive backs they play the flat really hard. Some of them they'll drift with the wide receiver, kind of like in just two man, where it's man, but you have a guy over the top. Here, as I mentioned, you're gonna have a linebacker or defensive back type go to the flat, and then you're gonna have the defensive back right here to the top. What there's a space between the two, right? And what I like is he finds that space and then he's able to not drift it into the defender, but work towards the sideline right there. You just create more space, a room for your quarterback to throw. So that's still the good from him. This right here is like by far the best route he's ran, I think, in his entire collegiate career. So he's in the slot right here. If you can see that circle and if you can see with the mouse, there he is to the bottom of the screen. I'm surprised that they're giving him like free release, free access to run this post route. And I like the thought process and journey, uh, or destination actually, journey and destination into this route. So he's going up against this safety right here. This safety is going to be left on an island. And I like, as I mentioned, the process. And what I also want to mention about this is we're going to see it later where, right, his change of direction is not very good. He does round a lot of cuts. It takes him a while, like sometimes four, four or maybe 1.5 steps to really get in and out of that break. That's something that's difficult for him. But what he does and what I like is typically on a post route, you're going to want to close space, be like 2 or 3 yards from the defensive back. This time, since he doesn't have that, he gets about 5 yards, and he's going to work to threaten their leverage right here from the outside, work back inside, and you just see the separation he creates there. So later in the videos, when we'll start to see the not so great from him, and a lot of that, as I've already mentioned before, is about, just his change of direction. He rolls his cuts, rounding the cuts, how long it takes him to get in and out of the break, the urgency within his routes. He has a very upright running and play style. Um, but right here, there he is to the bottom. And you're going to see, I want to say about like the 35, maybe even the 36-yard line, he really starts this urgency and he gets into that um, athletic kind of running style. Ducks his head down, threatens the DB vertically, basically. About right there, 35-yard line, he starts to threaten them vertically, and then the snap down on it is pretty good right there. Again, I'll play it again. But then what makes him really good is I like the way he pursues his angles to set him up for yards after the catch. So on this comeback, instead of going back to the middle of the field, the defensive back's pursuit is going to be to your left shoulder or the inside. So you go back outside, you create yourself some opportunity for yak, and of course more yards, which is always great. But if I could get back, excuse me. All right, so watch him about the 35-yard line. It's upright, now it's vertical, and then the snap down is very good and violent. All right, so the end result to this play, to some, it's going to look fantastic and it's going to look good. It's going to look like a fantastic route. I'm going to tell you why it isn't, and I think up against NFL level competition, this could possibly just not work from him. So he's going to run to the top of the screen right here. He's going to run an out and up. I'll play it so that way there's not too much commentary for you all. Okay, so on an out and up, typically you want to have the body language and make it look like it's an out. That way the defensive back right here gets to jump on it, and then you have the free access for the out and up. So it's about body language, getting your head turned, flipping your hips completely to the sideline. Here, he necessarily doesn't do that. So watch him to the top of the screen, really doesn't flip his hips completely to the sideline. They're really not at the angle you want to be. You can see they're kind of, but it's still tilting and drifting upfield. A lot of that has to do with his just mobility overall. I mean, the defensive back, yeah, they do bite on it, but I'm just worried of like against NFL level competition. These receivers, they've seen all these routes, like they've seen it time and time again. So it's about the process and getting into it. Like here, it to me, it just doesn't feel like he's running an actual out. And it's key for double moves. You want to make it look like it's the body language is going to be an out, and then finally, catch him, have him bite on it on the out and up. All right, now to the bottom of the screen. He faces a lot of just because of his size, right? And he's like an area code wide receiver. He's going to face a lot of safety over the top, right? A lot of great wide receivers do. Okay, so he's going to run. It's inside, actually, it's outside leverage from the defensive back, excuse me, and he's going to run a sluggo. So this is where we get to the point of what I was talking about with on double moves. Have the body language, position your hips to where you're given the indication that it's one route, but then finally with a violent snap down or that quick foot in the ground, you can break it off and win. Here he necessarily doesn't do that. And then about closing space, here he tries to get the 2 to 3 yards to close space, but he just can't round the corner or get out of. He just doesn't have that uh, because of his frame and size. So watch him. Really trying to run a sluggo, a slant and go, really just doesn't position his hips right. Gets too close to the defensive back. They do get some of their arms around him. They run into contact there, and just it messes up the timing of this route and so on. As a wide receiver, right, we see a lot of the great wide receivers or the number ones when they have press coverage, they're able to beat it. They're able to have quick footwork, a quick release, all of that stuff. I just don't think he has in the arsenal right now, and or yet. So there he is to the top of the screen, and then right, he's a tall wide receiver, so tall should mean physical, but I do think he gets jammed and pushed to the sideline more often than he should. We see the defensive back, they got one arm. They're still riding with one arm. They push him to the sideline. Um, you just wish with his size he'd be a little bit more physical to break out of that and not get pushed to the sideline. When in push coverage like this, and when defensive backs are able to get those hands on him, uh, and he has to rely on his releases, he does he does get jammed up, as shown right here. And then again, it's just about the part of being physical and by being able to fight off contact right there. So the defensive back, they get one hand on him, they're able to push him all the way to the sideline. And again, I mean, they completely knock him out of that play. And then again, he's going to get a lot of, because of his size, safety help from the top. Here he is to the top of the screen right here. He's on a comeback with inside leverage. And then again, just his transition out of the break is just not there to that level. So about right there, 48-yard line, he starts to make the breaks to turn to the outside for the comeback. Finally finishes right there at about the 44-yard line. And listen, it's just a bad throw by the quarterback. He does get open, and it's just a terrible throw. But again, it's just going back to the technicality standpoint of it. And listen, again, I'm gonna say again, he's 6'5", so of course it's a lot harder. But of course, in the NFL, you know, route running, especially nowadays, rules. Just going back to the physicality standpoint, right? There's times where it feels like maybe, or I saw someone phrase it perfectly this way, like he's a tall receiver, but he also plays like a kind of finesse style. I mean that there's really not a whole lot of physicality. So like right here, this is within the 5 yards. Defensive back, they're able to get hands on them, kind of knock off the timing in the route. They do get a little bit of a hold there at the top of the stem or the top of the break point. Here, I mean, he's running a hitch route. He has leverage for it because the defensive back is playing outside leverage. It just feels like sometimes there's not the suddenness at the snap down. You know, and within running a hitch route, you want to make there be urgency to press the corner vertically. And just at times, it's just not there. There he is to the bottom of the screen. It all results good, but it's about the process and being the technique standpoint of it because everybody has athleticism and right. It's just about this technique and technicality. when watching him run routes, it just doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of urgency within his stride. Like you watch some receivers, right? They look fast um on the tape. They're getting a whole lot of leg drive, pump, they're pressing vertically. Him, it just feels like it's relaxing, right? Some people may say, well, he's got long limbs, so the long strides, he's going to make up ground. Not true, but when it becomes to urgency and pressing vertically, it just feels like it's a tad slow. So watch him up to the top of the screen. Right, feels a tad slow. At the 45 is when he's starting to snap down. And he gets low enough, right? Good. You're 6'5" and you're able to get that low into like a sitting position. Perfect. But then how fast do we get out of that break? At the 45, where does he finish? About the 48-yard line, he finishes. You don't want to roll your cuts on hitches because you allow the cornerback to close space without even having to do anything, right? Without even having to go into their T step or their regular step. The clock has struck 000 for the film breakdown portion of this video. Now for the player summary on Tet McMillan. Starting off with the pros and the positive attributes he has. He's got size. He's an area code wide receiver, a deep threat in the sense of just throw it up and have him go make a play on it. He's got tremendous hands. We've seen that on film, right? He can catch the ball with one hand. He high points the ball at its highest point, makes very difficult catches as well. And then just his overall size. And then he's pretty good for his size in yards after catch. Now, areas that he can improve on are most definitely route running, getting in and out of the breaks. And it just doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of urgency within his routes, like a whole lot of pump or leg drive or pushing vertically. Actually, perfect word to phrase it is agility. Just a technicality standpoint, his releases I also think are going to have to be refined too. At the NFL, like in college, he was supposed to run certain routes and get away with it. How's that transition going to be like in the NFL when your cuts aren't as sharp? They're actually rounded. You roll them a little bit. You allow the defensive backs to close space. You just don't have that kind of movement to be as twitchy or finesse like how he plays. And then speaking of the finesse, it goes back to the physicality is how physical of a receiver is he going to be, even though he is 6'5". So for Tet McMillan, and the reason why y'all tune into this video, why scouts are low on him. I think scouts are low on him for the points of just his route running, technicality within his route running, and just the agility that he doesn't have, right? Some receivers, if they're not that much of a technician route running wise, they can use agility to get away with it. For Tet McMillan, it's gonna be interesting. Do I think he's the number one? At this point, based off the college film and how it would translate to the pros, I don't think he's a number one standalone kind of receiver that could be like, just being that number one guy overall on the whole entire team. But I do think he is a perfect fit for a team that's already got that all around or twitchy slot wide receiver.